July 3rd, Monday, 2023. We have a pre-4th of July patriotic video review just for you. Although I do not have a copy of this film, it was streaming on Netflix, and it was 109 yesterday, and we wanted to stay indoors with the AC ablazing. Actually, can an AC system really be ablaze? No. The AC system was trying to cool my house, but it never got below 87, even with it running for hours. Welcome to the Central Valley, folks. So today's feature film, like I mentioned, it's on Netflix for streaming in the US. It is based off of the 2010 book by Lauren Hillerbrand, Unbroken, the story of real-life US Olympic athlete and World War II veteran Louis Zamperini from the South Bay in the city of Torrance in Southern California. The film adaptation, or the rights to his life, were bought by Universal as early as the 1950s, but they officially bought the book rights in 2011 from the biography that Hillerbrand had written about Zamperini's life. And Angelina Jolie directed, 2014 release date, Christmas 2014, 2 hours and 17-minute runtime. And the Coen brothers wrote the screenplay, and I'm a huge fan of the Coen brothers. I do believe they are no longer working together on pictures. I think one of them wanted to stick mostly to playwrights. Yeah, I don't know which one. But anyway, Coen brothers, great directorial group, and they are just great writers in general. So they adapted the screenplay from the book, and the movie was filmed in Australia primarily. And this guy, Zamperini, if you're a Christian, he was big in Christian circles. There is a famous Protestant evangelist by the name of Greg Laurie, and he had interviewed Zamperini. And then, like, the Billy Graham Association, he was like a big character for his conversion story to his belief in God through his hardships and his story of forgiveness, which a lot of the people did not like that the movie didn't really touch base on that. I guess there is a part 2 that is more of a Christian-based backstory about his struggles after the war, dealing with PTSD and alcoholism. But this movie starts in his young childhood and goes through his whole World War II experience, being on a bomber in the South Pacific, and then ultimately a prisoner of war in a Japanese internment camp. So there was this horrific commander, Watanabe, aka the Bird, and the standout performance was this Japanese actor Miyavi, who played the real-life character that was the tormentor of Zamperini while he was imprisoned. And the Zamperini character, he was played by a guy named Jack O'Connell. I didn't dig too deep into that, but it was a super disturbing movie. If you think about, my kids watched it with me and they were just like, why are people so mean? And I had to say, well, it was wartime. Not everything is sunshine and rainbows in times of war. The merciless beatings. The Japanese were especially cruel at tormenting their prisoners. And interestingly enough, as I was reading about the film, a lot of Japanese groups did not want the film shown in Japan because they did not like the way they were portrayed. I would have loved to have seen this movie made closer to the time period, like a David Lean movie, Bridge Over the River Kwai, came out, Best Picture in 1957, I believe. I would have loved to have seen how this movie would have played out at that time, because it was especially horrific even in modern times, the depictions of the American POWs and the British POWs at the hands of the Japanese captors. But it did stir up a lot of feelings. This movie was very polarizing. Critically, the Rotten Tomatoes didn't really... The average critic review was 52%. It didn't really have a very big reception, but it was the third largest opening for a Christmas Day opening. It had a budget of $65 million and it made $163 million at the box office, so it was a commercial success. I didn't really like that they had a lot of desaturation in the film. I don't know why they did that. I guess it was just Angelina Jolie's artistic choice. But the colors were all very muted. Maybe that was kind of symbolizing just the dark circumstances in which Zamperini and all the other American GI POWs found themselves in during the time of war. Rotten Tomatoes was a little bit more positive, 7.2 out of 10, and Google users are 86%, and I'm kind of along the lines with those guys. I thought it was a great film, stirred up a lot of emotion, hard to see some of the brutality that these guys experienced in the South Pacific in time of their capture, but 4 out of 5 is my rating on this film. I don't know if I would say it's a classic. It was a very stirring movie, and I know the book was like a very esteemed, it was kind of a bestseller as well. So I'd recommend it just because I love real life movies. I love biographical movies. I would be interested to see part 2. It's not very well received either because it's kind of one of those low budget Christian ministry type movies. But the full story of Louis Zamperini, which this movie kind of left out as a story of redemption, because he goes through the hardships of the war and he comes out with severe PTSD, struggles with alcoholism, really had a hard time getting over the terrors that he endured, and albeit from him coming to Christ, he had a redemption and was able to make a recovery from the past hardships that he endured, including going back to Japan and seeking forgiveness from the very people that abused him in his time of capture, including his overlord, the Watanabe guy, the guy that was the most severe beatings he endured from, refused to meet with him. Kind of reminds me of another famous person that endured persecution at the hand of captors, Corrie ten Boom. She was able, through the love of Christ, to forgive her captors, the Gestapo SS guards that tormented her and her sisters. So if you look at it from that is the story, or the real backstory of this guy. He obviously endured hardship, survived 47 days at sea on a raft, survived the war as a POW, but was able to forgive and move past it, but with his Christian faith. So until next time, the story of Louis Zamperini, as shown in the motion picture. Recommend it. We'll see you then.